briefly outline what we're going to cover. We're going to have a very brief couple of slide overview of what the upgrade means, what the processes have been behind the scenes with Microsoft and the different versions we'll be looking at. We're going to talk about what we're not covering. So we actually have broken this down into a top 10 list that we're going to do in kind of a countdown format. So that's our third bullet point there. Even with a top 10 list of things that we think are some of the best improvements in CRM since 2011, there are a lot of things we're not going to cover. So we consolidated a bunch of those into one slide just so you'd have a brief overview of those. And then we'll do a deeper dive into here's the top 10 things that we think have the most business value that have appeared since 2011 or later. And then we're going to have another brief slide on cloud or on-premise. We're asked about that a lot, so this seemed to be a good presentation where we can take about 5 minutes to talk about the differences and why you might want to consider a cloud deployment hosted by Microsoft versus an on-premise deployment hosted in your own shop or maybe through a local vendor you work with. And then we're going to have a little bit of a discussion on the perils of upgrading. Upgrading from CRM 2011 is not always a no-brainer. There can be some pitfalls, so we want to be clear and candid about those right before we turn you guys loose. We have a ton of online resources also, and we're going to be referring to those in some summary slides at the end of this, so you can do a lot deeper of a dive as we get into that. Let me pause for 1 second and ask Allison to bring up a poll so I can get to know our attendees just a little bit better. Just help us to know where you are with Dynamics CRM right now. So you have, I think, 5 choices there. If you've checked out to look at email or something, please do check back in and just quickly take a second to click one of these options. If you're on CRM 2011 or earlier, let us know that. If you're on 2013, sort of the new user interface, but not the latest version, that would be good to know. Are you on 2015, or are you on the absolute latest version, 2015 Update Rollup 1? If you don't know, then you're probably on Update Rollup 1. I'm sorry, if you don't know, you're probably not on Update Rollup 1. You're probably just on 2015. But if you're online and you're getting all the latest updates, then your administrator might have updated you to Update Rollup 1. So if you're not sure about those two, pick 2015, I suppose. And if you're not yet using it, you're here kind of kicking the tires, thinking Dynamics CRM might be something you're interested in, then let us know that as well. So take a couple more seconds to cast your vote, and then Allison's going to bring up the results and review those with us.
Perfect. We've got almost everybody voting, so we'll give about 2 more seconds. If you can get in where you are currently with Dynamics CRM, I'm going to go ahead and close this out now, and we'll share the results really quickly. The bulk of today's attendees are on 2011 or earlier, with another 20% coming in on 2013 and final 20% on 2015.
Great. Okay, thanks everybody for participating in that poll. So let's dive into our content. What we're going to cover today are these 4 different iterations of CRM. We're not going to cover anything that was new in 2011. We knew most everybody is probably on that. I'm getting some feedback that maybe someone's mic needs to be muted. We should be able to do that here, but for some reason we're getting a little bit of feedback from somewhere. So
it looks like a couple people may have called in by phone, so if you wouldn't mind and you dialed in by phone and not through the WebEx, please make sure that telephone is on mute.
Okay, it seems to have gotten quieter now. So sorry if there's some background noise. That seems to be a GoToWebinar limitation where we can't find and mute whoever that was. Thank you for doing that on your own. So we're assuming everyone is on CRM 2011 or later. If you're on an earlier version than 2011, we're not going to cover anything new that came out in 2011. But we will cover what came out in versions 2013, which was essentially a pretty significant refresh of the whole user interface. Very different look and feel for the application. It's almost like moving to a different application. 2015, that took where Microsoft went in 2013 and added some additional productivity enhancements to it. And then what's just come out in the last few weeks here really is UR1, or what's also called the spring release of CRM 2015, which added a lot of new collaboration capabilities to it and really kind of ramped it up to a whole new level. So everything we're going to cover is in one of those versions. If you're on 2013 or 15 already, then you may already be using some of these features. Our experience, however, is a lot of people upgrade without really even leveraging some of these new things. So there's probably a lot new in here no matter where you are in that process. But we do know a lot of our clients who are on-premise and have stayed with 2011 for a while So we targeted that in particular, knowing that there's a lot of questions around what are the next steps to do with that. So what are we not covering today? There are tons of links to short videos and very deep dive technical articles that we're clearly not going to go into today. We're going to share with you that link at the end of this session so you can go look at all of that information. But we boiled this down to a top 10 list, and what didn't make the list are some things like other applications. So Microsoft in the last few years has acquired and updated and rolled out entirely new applications that expand and complement what goes on in Dynamics CRM. So there's a Dynamics marketing piece. CRM already has marketing things built into it, capabilities built into it. Dynamics marketing for Microsoft takes that to a whole new level. The Unified Service Desk and Parature are two different applications. Unified Service Desk is actually freely available to you if you have Dynamics CRM. And that gives you a sort of an integration platform for your call center where they can access CRM and other applications all within one screen. And Parature, which is a multi-channel support piece of software that expands on the support case management capabilities built directly into CRM. And then social engagement, which is for socially engaging with customers and prospects on social channels like Facebook and Twitter and other ones like that. So we're not going to look at those today because those are all separate applications from Dynamics CRM. But as you're getting into CRM 2015, if you start thinking we want to go a little further and a little deeper with things like marketing and customer service than we can with the core platform, those become additional tools you can look at to give yourself better capabilities in those areas. Also not making the top 10 list was this idea of less lost data. So CRM started auto-saving records once you got into CRM 2013. So your users don't need to remember to hit that save button before they walk away from their computer lest they lose any information. Now CRM's automatically doing that in the background. Less coding. So there are a lot of upgrades to real-time workflows and business rules. Basically, those are things that allow you to replace plugins and JavaScript, for those of you who are familiar with those technical terms. So you don't need as much in the way of technical skills to expand CRM. We think those are great capabilities, but we wanted to focus on the non-technical things today, so that didn't make the list either. There are a lot of upgrades to the customer service portion of CRM. There's time-based service level agreements. You can set time goals. You can have sales processes or customer service processes in there that help you walk customers through whatever your service process is. Those did not make the final cut for the top 10 either. Very powerful, and if you're using CRM for customer service or considering it for that, it probably is on your top 10 list. Mapping is now built directly into CRM as well, so directly in your lead, contact, and account forms, you can see a map of the address where they're located. That's right there out of the box. As soon as you turn it on, those are available. We're not covering that today, but it's a nice capability. CRM 2013 and 2015 became a lot more visual, so you can actually have photo icons, sort of like a LinkedIn or other social network, of your contacts or company logos. You can set whole themes to your CRM and how that works. You can have different color schemes, something that's more aligned with your corporate branding and those kinds of things, all now available in there. This idea of using fewer applications to get your job done is a really big deal for business users. One of the things we found in research is that the number one reason why CRM applications don't get adopted is because they're not integrated well with other applications, and so the salespeople, service people, marketing people wind up having to go to 4, 5, 6 different places to get their jobs done. With the revisions Microsoft has made that make it easier to do quoting and ordering directly inside of CRM and easier to integrate with other applications, and also just easier to build whole new custom applications on top of it, that really helps to mitigate that issue. Again, it's a fairly technical thing, so we're not focusing on it here. We do have a blog out there about ERP versus CRM and how a lot of things that are typically done in ERP are now migrating into CRM applications. You may want to search our blog for that one. And the last big thing that didn't make it is this whole idea of voice and mobile. With every release of CRM since 2011, Microsoft has expanded and enhanced the mobile capabilities of CRM, including the ability now to use Cortana if you're using a Microsoft device, and it's rolling out on Android devices soon as well, to actually look up, search for records in CRM, and even create new records and do light data entry in CRM just using your voice. So less having to use your thumbs on your mobile phone to enter records in. And the mobile capabilities are great. It's available in virtually every mobile device. That's included out of the box as well. But again, we're not going to cover that. There are a number of other things that didn't even make the list of what we're not covering that are also powerful depending on who you are and what your needs are. Queue management has gotten a complete makeover since CRM 2013. So you can now have team work queues where you can assign leads to an inside sales team or service cases to your service desk. First available person can claim them. They can be escalated and reassigned based on various different rules. Queues are a very powerful functionality if you need them. Security has gotten significantly updated, so if you're a mid to large sized organization and you need a more robust security model than what you've had, that's available. Sandboxes, so if you're in CRM Online, you can actually create a carbon copy of your CRM virtually in real time to do your own playing, testing, developing, but outside of your production environment to minimize the risk of upsetting the apple cart of what your users are doing. Yammer Integration for better internal social networking. Outlook data mapping, so you can map different data from your Outlook records, particularly your contacts, if you have custom fields or fields you're using for a specific purpose, into CRM. Creating custom help, and there's tons of administrator features that we're clearly not going to cover today. Probably the most important of those is the idea of much enhanced integration. So integration with other applications can be developed faster, but also perform much more rapidly than was previously possible. So with that said, let's jump into counting down from our number 10. So our number 10, sort of the bottom of the list, working towards what in our opinion is the number one improvement, is this idea of improved collaboration. And we look at this three different ways. First of all, there's Sharepoint integration. So right now, Sharepoint integration, or in 2011, it was fairly basic. In 2013, a new web part came out that made it a little easier. And in 2015, between both Sharepoint and CRM, new scripting capabilities came out that made it much easier to integrate Sharepoint to share documents or other information in Sharepoint directly inside of CRM. So again, this whole idea of integration, minimizing the need for users to toggle back and forth between applications, the Sharepoint integration really builds some of that collaboration in. The next two are ones available only in the absolute latest version, CRM 2015, Update Rollup 1, and that's Office 365 groups, and then the ability to track emails using folders in Outlook. So let's talk about the first one real quick. I'm going to zoom in on this image just so you can get a little bit of a better insight into it. So groups integration with Office 365 means you can collaborate with team members that don't even have CRM. So in Office 365, Microsoft recently rolled out this idea of groups where you can create a group around a topic, and a topic could be something like an opportunity or a customer in CRM. And in that group, you can have conversations, meetings, members of that group, share documents, and so on. So you can see on this image, a group has been created for this opportunity, and right inside of it, you can see there's some documents that have been shared, there's some conversations, some internal social conversations that are taking place. I can see the different team members who are a part of this, and I can see some of the activities that have taken place around this. So all of those things that typically might show up in Outlook for a team can now show up under one record in CRM. And the really nice thing about this is Office 365 groups are not just a CRM tool. So now you can collaborate with people who aren't using CRM and people who are using CRM. And the ones who are using CRM don't have to toggle back and forth between Office or something like that. They can just look at this directly inside of CRM. You can also now track emails using folders in Outlook. So what that means is Exchange has Exchange folders, so they're shared folders, kind of like a lot of users create in their Outlook, and you can drag and drop emails into those folders to track them in CRM. So again, non-CRM users, or maybe people who don't have CRM up and running on their device, can put things in folders and they automatically get tracked in CRM without having to have a CRM Outlook client running on your desktop, and even without having to have a CRM client. So if you have someone maybe internally who's doing manufacturing or customer service and they don't have a CRM license, but they have an interaction with a customer and they want CRM users to be able to see that, they can drag and drop it into that customer's folder and it becomes visible directly. Number 9. So there's a lot of 2011 is where we're going to make it a little easier to drill down. records, running their sales meetings and other meetings around customer-facing things like customer service and marketing directly from dashboards. And it's very interactive. They don't just pull the dashboard up. They actually dive into how are we doing with these opportunities, how many activities have you created with these, when was the last time you changed the stage of it, all of those kinds of things in a meeting. What might be more exciting is there's expanded Excel exporting. So what that means is up until the absolute latest version, you could only export 10,000 records into Excel at once. So if you wanted to do some analysis or list building or something like that with Excel, you had to do it in 10,000 record chunks. Now you can export up to 100,000 records to Excel at a time. So you've got greatly expanded abilities to do analysis. And because you can do that, you can now integrate it better with Power BI. And that is a separate product from Microsoft. They've had a beta version of it out for quite a while, but they've just rolled out a new production version of it. And this image over here is actually a shot from Power BI with some of the CRM integration. So what Power BI does is it takes dashboards that you can do in Microsoft to a whole new level where you can now marry data up without having to integrate that data into CRM to report on information from multiple different sources in one dashboard. So those are the kinds of dashboards that maybe executives would want to have, where they not only have CRM information at their fingertips, but they've also combined it with other systems. And Microsoft has rolled out a template for CRM where you can pull data directly out of CRM into Power BI right away to get your initial dashboards built. Number 8, OneNote integration. So this is brand new, an update roll-up one as well. At some point we'll probably do a demo video of it. But for those of you who are using OneNote, this is a game changer. And for those of you who aren't, you probably should be. It's a really awesome application for particularly people in the sales team to just quickly be able to take notes about customers and prospects that they're talking with. But in the past, it was a separate application from CRM. Now it's built right into the social pane. So you can see up in this top kind of clear area, you can go to the social pane, which is a new area introduced in CRM 2013, click on the OneNote segment, and you can open up your OneNotes associated with that customer right there. When you do that, those OneNote notes open up, bottom of the screen, inside the web browser or inside OneNote on your desktop. And if you're using the tablet version of CRM on your Windows tablet, you can actually update the notes right next to CRM at the same time. So it's sort of two different panes of the same screen. So it makes it a much more seamless operation. Number 7, Outlook improvements. So in general, the integration with CRM and Outlook has been improved some. There's the embedded mail merge is a little bit better. The CRM pane in Outlook works a little bit more seamlessly. But the big change is the most recent one, and that is the CRM app for Outlook. Again, available with the latest version of CRM. I'm going to zoom in on that. This is a smaller, lighter weight version of the Outlook integration. It loads faster, but the key thing is it can actually work with either the desktop version of Outlook, just like you'd installed it before, you installed on your desktop Outlook, or with the online version of the Outlook web application. So now if you have users, for instance, many of our clients have a few people who use Macs, and those Mac users could never do the Outlook integration because Outlook doesn't work on Macs. Well, now they can use the web application for Outlook, and using that, they can have access to a lot of functionality. They can track incoming emails, set a regarding record. They can determine whether a record is already tracked, and if so, they can view the record. They can preview information about CRM contacts and leads. So you can see here we're previewing what we know about Maria Campbell, including recent activities, open cases, and open opportunities. They can create new contact or lead records if the person on the from line isn't already included in the CRM database, so 1 or 2 clicks to create new records inside of CRM. They can view information about the last and next activities, as we just saw, and you can open CRM forms directly if you need more detailed information. Now, this works with email only, so unlike the heavier weight Outlook integration, where you can track appointments and tasks and contacts, this really focuses just on emails. Number 6, in general, there's a shorter learning curve with the latest version of Dynamics CRM. There's a lot of reasons for that. Many of them we're covering in these other numbered items, but there are a couple here that really go a long way towards this. First of all, process navigation, we're going to talk about processes a little bit more in a couple of slides here, but process navigation is now much simpler. For example, in previous versions of CRM, the whole idea of converting a lead to an account, contact, and opportunity was pretty confusing for users because they practically had to understand relational databases and relational database theory and constructs to make all that work. Now you can see all of that in one place in a seamless process that flows through. Less training for users, less having to worry about all those different things. Number two that we think is very significant is now you can finally configure the Outlook sync settings as an administrator without having to go visit each user's desktop. So this is a big deal when you have users who say, hey, I want to be able to sync some of the contacts that I want to look at that are actually owned by a different user. How can I change my Outlook sync settings to do that? Well, you're either customizing them for every user one-off or running around to each desk or giving them training to do that. And it's kind of a mind-numbing activity because it requires an understanding of queries and filters. And most day-to-day users have a really hard time getting their heads around that. Now, from the configuration area, you can set up each individual user's sync settings. So huge reduction in learning curve for users, huge administrative leap in terms of being able to do that stuff centrally for your organization. Number 5, as we work down the list closer and closer to number 1, is this idea of more real estate, less clicking, fewer pop-ups. So it's just less complicated to use. So we're going to go through several screen builds here as we work through these 5 different things under the subtitle area. So first of all, CRM Forms got a complete makeover. If you're used to looking at CRM 2011, you can see this form looks a lot different. One of the things it did is it gives you a lot more real estate. If you look at this form, try to get my mouse to pop up here if I can. There it is. In 2011, you're used to having a left navigation area that takes up some of the real estate on the screen. That's gone in the later versions of CRM, starting with 2013. So you open up all of that extra real estate over there. You're also used to having some top navigation and a ribbon menu that comes down. That's also gone. It's replaced with this much lighter weight ribbon that gives you the highest priority functions here, and then a drop down here for other functions if you need to give your users more than that number of functions in one place. You also have composite fields. So if you look down here under address, the address is stored in a nice consolidated area here. It doesn't take up as much real estate on the screen, but when the user tabs into this, and it works the same with first and last name, they get this pop-out over here where they can now enter the more detailed address information. So the net effect of redesigning the forms like this is you have much more white space, it's much less intimidating, users can get in and do a lot more a lot easily, they just feel like the learning curve isn't as steep. Even in many cases when you have actually more stuff on the screens than you used to, users who look at this versus 2011 feel like there's less and therefore feel like it's less intimidating to them. It's just more white space is a good thing. Less is more, and the screens look like they have less on them because they're just not as crowded anymore. You can also create entire new records with a quick create function. So that means, for instance, if I wanted to add a new contact to this account, and again, this is just a screenshot, so I can't demo it right now, but there's a quick create button. And what I'll do is I'll get a drop down in the account that auto-populates all the fields that are on the account into the contact form also. I can quickly fill out the rest of the contact form, hit save. That drop down scrolls back up out of sight, and I'm right back on the account form. So I don't have to pop up a contact, enter all the information, save and close it, and then somehow go navigate back to find the account. It's happening automatically for me. And starting in 2015, they actually have embedded pop-ups. So I could, for example, create a new contact, and if that contact's associated with a new account, I can click new there, and it creates another drop-down for the account for me to create that under the contact. So very easy for me to do data entry, a lot fewer pop-ups, a lot fewer places you have to click around to. It's one streamlined interface. Forms also now have more embedded grids in them. So if you remember in 2011, you tended to navigate over to that left area to look at related lists. Now those tend to be put right into the form, so your users don't have to remember to navigate all over the place to see what they need to see. It's on the form. But related to that also is this new integration with Microsoft Excel. So now you can, if you're using CRM Online, you can click export to Excel so I can edit it. And in this case, this user had exported the list of opportunities. they can go and update the opportunities right there. At the top of it, they can click Save this back to CRM, and it updates the information into CRM. So one of the complaints we heard with CRM in the past was so many sales users in particular would say, I've got to go update a bunch of records, and it's so time consuming to go look for each record, click the record to open it, find what I have to update, make the updates, save and close it, repeat that process for every record. I want a grid like Excel where I can go update things really quickly. Microsoft delivered that in the latest version, Update Rollup 1, but only for folks who are using CRM Online. The menu structure has changed a lot too. Remember, we have all this new real estate since CRM 2011, and in CRM 2013 we had just one level of drop-down menu here. CRM 2015 Update Rollup 1 introduced this next tier menu, so now your users can get to the functionality they need in CRM with just 1 or 2 clicks. In versions 2013 and 2015 before Update Rollup 1, all of these things you see down here under the sales menu, they would actually have been options up here. And you can imagine that would be a long list of things to scroll through to get to, let's say you wanted to get to goals, to get to what you need to get to. Now it's just 1 or 2 clicks to get down to what you need to get to in 2015. And by the way, for that last point, for the editable Excels, we do have a short video you can watch on that on YouTube. Again, we'll do the link at the end of this session to that. Starting in 2015, Microsoft added the ability to visualize complex relationships. They call it visual hierarchies. So it works with any relationship. In this case, you can see it working with accounts. So I can see this Account A Datum Corporation has 3 subsidiaries, and one of those subsidiaries, AdventureWorks, has another subsidiary under that. Your administrator can set up what data shows up in the fields on each one of those cards, and they can even do aggregated fields, so they can have summary amounts in those fields, so you can have an at-a-glance view of very complex relationships. But it's not just about account relationships. It can work with reporting relationships for your contacts. It can work with product families for your product and price book. It can work with projects and sub-projects or any customizations you set up inside the system at all. So a generalized capability to have a view of complex relationships. Great, especially for companies that are in a business-to-business environment, selling to large businesses or selling to holding companies that have many child businesses under them. Number 3, we're getting down to the top 3 now. So number 3 is this idea of sales intelligence. And excuse me for a second. So included in versions, I believe it's 2013 and on, is this idea of social insights. That's an add-on from a company called Inside View that Microsoft has partnered with. You get the add-on for free. You can get an enhanced version of it by paying a higher price to Inside View for some enhanced capabilities. But even in the free version, you can sync data to see that you've got the latest client data. So if you look over to the left, you can see news, data, people, and buzz, and that's for this company, Coho Winery, that I'm looking at. Well, when I look at Coho Winery, if I say, hey, I don't have all that information in CRM yet, I can click the sync button on top. And when I do that, I get this pop-up that says, here's what you have in CRM already, and here's what I have in Insights. Check the boxes for the fields you want to update and click Update Account, and I'll update those fields for you. I can also look up new contacts to those accounts, and with the paid version, I can even buy and download lists for lead management to have more leads that I'm automatically adding into my CRM system. So sales intelligence, meaning now I can start to see things like how big is this company, how many employees do they have, what's their current address. I can click on Buzz and I can see the latest articles either in mainline press or in social channels as well. So I can have a lot more intelligence about my customers before I make that call. Number 2, some of this might seem like a small thing, but it's a very big thing for most business users. That's this idea of finding more of the information you need and finding it faster than you used to be able to find it before. So working through this list of 5 items, the first one is this idea of global search. So in CRM, if you were trying to look for instance, a person, sometimes you wouldn't know, should I search my contacts for that record or should I search my leads for that record? There might be other things like that as well. So you can see on the top bar of CRM now, let me zoom into that a little bit, there's a search bar built right into the top bar of CRM. I typed the word product into that bar, and I was given this list of records that contain the word product. activities and cases. And this is configurable, so I can determine which entities it's going to search and which fields it's going to search one for it. So I could type in a contact name, and I'd find all the contacts with that name. I can type in an account name, and I'd find the account, but I'd also immediately, at the same time, pull up a list of all the contacts inside of that account without having to click all over the place to find what I'm looking for. So that's global search. There's also the idea of quick views. So a quick view is the ability to look at a parent form from a child form. So what the heck does that mean? So let's say I'm on an opportunity record, and one of the pet peeves of my sales team is, hey, whenever I'm looking at an opportunity, I always have to click the account name to go back to the account record to see all the other opportunities they have open and any current cases they have open and all the key contacts at that account. And I want to see that without having to go back to the account record. Quick views let you do that. You can now embed that account view directly into the opportunity form so that the user can see more of that 360-degree view of the customer without having to navigate to 2 or 3 different screens to get to what they want. The social pane we looked at a couple of slides ago, that's on each form. Right in the middle of the form, you have the ability to see a list of all of your activities in one place without having to click somewhere else to go see them, to create and schedule new future activities for whatever record that is. You can also do your internal social networking on the social pane, so you click another link on it, and you can have internal chats about what's going on with that particular record. And I can look at my notes, including my OneNote notes, all from the social pane inside of CRM. So again, more information about the customer with a lot less clicking around in form opening than you had to do before. Calculated fields. So calculated fields now allow you to do things like calculate a value based on 2 other values on the form, or more importantly, aggregate a value based on records underneath that record. So for example, I can add up the total value of all open opportunities and put that on the account form so that now I can see how much business do we in total have with this how much potential business do we have. And I can also do something like add up all the opportunities that have been won so I can see how much business have we actually done with this particular company over a period of time. And better and faster integration means we can now integrate data from other sources easier and faster into CRM to make it visible to your users. So again, less opening up other applications to learn about the customer, more getting the whole job done without leaving CRM at all. And the number one top reason to upgrade to CRM 2015 in our experience, and this actually first appeared in CRM 2013, but it has also steadily improved in subsequent versions, and that's this idea of business process flows. And there are several components to that. You've probably seen this already on some of the previous slides, but up here at the top we have the flow bar. So this bar can appear on the top of any form in CRM, and you can actually have different bars on the same form depending on the process. So the classic example is a sales process. You can see here I've got stages called qualify, develop, propose, and close. And as I go through each step and click on each item in that flow bar, it shows me a different list of fields that I define as an administrator what those fields are. So now instead of having to train your user, hey, when you're at this stage, go fill out these 4 fields, and when you're at the next stage, go fill out these 3 fields, this just walks the user through what you need to know about that opportunity during each stage of the opportunity. It's at the top of the form. They can still use the whole form the way they normally do, but this can guide them through it so that they're not navigating around, scratching their head, trying to remember what it is that they're supposed to do at each phase. This will tell them exactly what they need to do, what information they need to collect, what actions that they need to take. Recently, Microsoft also expanded it by adding branching. So now you can branch these to say, hey, depending on the value in one stage, you can hide or show a different stage. In this case, we're saying if the timeline for this opportunity is immediate, then pop up this next phase called propose right away so that the user will know to move directly to that phase instead of taking a longer process. You can also, as I mentioned earlier, have multiple processes for one record type. So you might have a large business opportunity and you might have a small business opportunity, and you might have different processes for those different opportunity types. And this can work across any record inside of CRM. So you might have a sales process, you might have a customer service process, you might have an account management process. We've seen people use their CRMs to manage collections and have a collections process. You can have a project management process. Custom entities are also supported in this. So that's it. That's our top 10. Now we're going to drill down into some of the related things, and again, at the end, we're going to come back to some deeper dive links you can use if you want to understand more about what's in this latest version of CRM. The first thing we want to address is this idea of, should we be on-premise or should we be in the cloud? So we get asked about this a lot by our clients, and we see a lot of organizations defaulting to the cloud, defaulting to on-premise still, because that's the way they've done things for so long. So when people ask us, our recommendation is almost always go to the cloud rather than on-premise now. 2 or 3 years ago, that might have been different. Now there's very few reasons why you should be on-premise, but let's go through some of those. So the most often quoted thing I hear for being on-premise is, we like managing our own security, and we like being able to have deeper access to do some configuration. So as we look at those things, one of the things we found with security is, if you are a Fortune 500 company, you might have the breadth and depth and bandwidth of technical resources to establish great security processes and procedures. If you're anyone else, you almost certainly do not have as good of a security as Microsoft has in their cloud. So we look at this as kind of a questionable as to whether this is valid or not. We do give on-premise a slightly higher rating than cloud, but really if you're a mid to small size company, the opposite is true. The cloud is probably going to have better security than you're going to be able to do yourself. And we see major companies, whether it be Target Corporation or the federal government, getting hacked every day. So if they, with all their resources, don't have the security they need, most smaller companies aren't going to have the security they need for their resources either. The second one we hear about is configurability. Hey, we'd like to be able to get access to the back end of the system sometimes to be able to do some stuff that you just can't do when it's hosted by Microsoft because they limit what you can get to. And while that might be true, and while that might even save a little bit of time if you need to do something quickly, it also means that you're probably doing something that's not best practice, or even worse, might be voiding your warranty with Microsoft. So again, that's a dubious one to put as a reason to go on-premise. But again, we give on-premise a slight edge over the cloud for that. But depending on the way you're looking at it, you could actually give the cloud a slight edge over on-premise. I'll give you one specific example. In fact, it leads us directly into our next two areas. A client we're working with right now is on CRM 2011. They want to ultimately upgrade to CRM 2015. They have done so many custom things to the back end of their CRM configuration, directly updating the database, changing values in different web configuration files and so forth, that their upgrade is probably going to cost them 5 times or more than it would cost if they had been online, because when you're online, which is the same as being in the cloud, you're actually forced to align with certain best practices because it's simply not an option to get in there and kind of hack the system. Now, don't get me wrong, you can still do some things that don't upgrade smoothly. There's still some ability to get in and do some things that aren't technically supported, including writing some of your own script and that kind of stuff, but the hazard is not nearly as high. So on the plus side for cloud, we look at enforcing best practice compliance as a very big plus side to being in the cloud. Your upgrades and your maintenance and support are likely to be much more cost effective over time. We also look at it and say, there's some online-only features. We talked about being able to integrate it with Excel Online to do faster data entry. Well, that's not going to be available on-premise. Sometimes that's pre-release only, so you'll have access to it for 6 months, and then Microsoft adds it to on-premise. But sometimes, because of all the unique things Microsoft is now doing in the cloud, it'll never be on-premise. Some of those features will only be available in the cloud. The other piece is add-on features. So if you're thinking of adding on a solution like Inside View, which we saw, or Click Dimensions, a marketing campaign management tool or something like that, you can install those on-premise, but generally the time and cost required to do so is higher because every organization's on-premise setup is probably somewhat unique in terms of its infrastructure and security settings, whereas cloud configuration hosted by Microsoft is always the same. So the vendors who create those add-ons can predict that and make it a smooth installation process, requiring little, if any, third-party resources to get it done, little, if any, of your IT resources to spend a lot of time going through a new learning curve on. On the negative side for on-premise, we can go through a number of different things here, but there's a lot of hardware maintenance, installations, those kinds of things that have to take place in order to configure CRM to work on-premise. Not only do you need the initial hardware and SQL servers and other software installed that CRM is dependent on, and the CRM server software itself, but you're also going to maintain those over time. So you're going to be replacing hardware, you're going to be updating the software, and you're going to have either time or cost every time you do that. Now, there may be a cost to doing your upgrades online too. I don't want to position it as that's cost-free, but again, because you're aligned well with best practices, those tend to be far less costly, and you get access to those new upgrades far sooner as a result. You also don't have to worry about things like configuring the IFD. That means internet-facing deployment. So most organizations have a pretty robust firewall, and so if you install on-premise, you have to configure an internet-facing deployment that knows how to allow users to get around that firewall if you want them to be able to access it without going through the VPN, which you usually do because a VPN usually slows down sales users so much. Cloud does allow you to keep that limitation in place if you want to. Running backups and other maintenance are also part of the on-premise cost overall. So what's the overall cost difference between the two? That's a really hard question to answer. Technically, if you go on-premise, you could decide never to pay for Microsoft software insurance because you're never going to upgrade from the version that you're on right now. You're just going to install it once and go. And technically, that's going to be a lower cost solution for you. I don't think that's realistic. I think most organizations want to have access to some of the great features that we've seen here and the other ones that will become available in the future, but you could look at it that way. Cloud, on the other hand, if you look at it, you'll say, well, gosh, we don't have to install anything on servers. The only licenses we have to worry about is one simple licensing fee for CRM per user. We don't have to worry about, well, do they have SQL Server licenses too, and all sorts of the other things that they might need on the server side to have access to it. So you could say 6 of one, half a dozen of the other for the cost, and in general, what we tell people is we wouldn't let cost be a big factor in deciding an on-premise versus the cloud. We'd say do the best thing from a business standpoint and from an IT standpoint, and then work on fine-tuning the cost to get it as close as you can or better, depending on which solution you get. But they're not going to be vastly different from each other when you look at it in the grand scheme of things. And the last one that's the most important, that has really kind of ties all of these together, is if you're on-premise, you're spending a lot of time trying to keep CRM up and running. Some people call this just keeping the lights turned on. So running all of these updates and backups and all those kinds of things consumes a lot of your most expensive and valuable resources, a lot of the technical people in your organization, or if you use an outside partner like us, it means a lot of the money you're spending on us gets spent on doing tactical, technical things instead of helping you strategically transform your business. And what we know from experience and from research, not just our own, but across the marketplace, is a CRM solution, a process, not just a piece of technology, implemented well, can absolutely transform businesses. It can not just save money, but they can speed the sales process, they can bring efficiency to your salespeople, they can improve your close rates, they can help you get to know your customers faster, and even develop entirely new innovations. But if your focus is, well, this is just a piece of technology that we need to maintain, you're probably not going to get those benefits out of it. If you unleash your resources to focus on business transformation, you're probably going to do far better as a result. And by the way, that last slide also has a 5-minute online YouTube video we'll link to at the end of this. So if you want to go through that separate from all these other things, you can watch that video with whoever you'd like to watch it with. Now, there's a reason why so many people are still on CRM 2011. During the course of all the small upgrades, what Microsoft calls update roll-ups, they released one that made many underlying changes so that CRM could do some new things. It could work across multiple browsers, pages would load faster, and it paved the way for some of the new form design changes and those kinds of things that came in later versions of CRM. So it's important that they do that, but that broke a lot of the ways that organizations had coded up and configured their CRM. So even if you configured it according to best practices, some of those no longer worked and you had to modify that. And if you went around those best practices and did things in a way that didn't comply with what Microsoft said you should do, that created some real time-consuming issues for doing the upgrade. So if your organization is at or beyond CRM 2011 Update Rollup 12, that's good news, because that's when most of those changes were introduced, and your upgrades to future versions of CRM, while they still might need some time and investment, they're going to be far less costly than if you are pre-Update Rollup 12. So if you're on CRM 2011 Update Rollup 11 or earlier, you'll need to spend some extra time investigating your CRM to see, hey, how many of these things that we've done are going to require a do-over before we upgrade to CRM 2013, 2015, or subsequent versions. And for some of you, that might be very few, but if you've got a lot of complex things going on inside of your CRM solution, for some of you, that might be a great number. So we advise a lot of caution. Don't just go out and kind of install the latest version of CRM over the top of your old one without first spending some time investigating it and doing some testing. Now, with all of that said, a lot of organizations are struggling to get their CRM to return the expected value. So this is probably the most important slide I'll present today. We've got a whole recorded presentation, in fact, multiple ones, on this exact topic. You may be surprised to hear this, but upgrading the latest version of CRM is not going to fix your CRM problems if you're struggling with getting value out of CRM. So let me say that again. It's exciting to see all these new features, and we love to see people upgrade to them. We love to see people take advantage of them. But if you are struggling to get value out of CRM, if your users are struggling to use it efficiently, upgrading to CRM 2015 is not going to magically make you more productive and give you more value out of CRM. What we strongly suggest is that you spend your time and money proving out your CRM investment by making CRM 2011 or whatever version you're on work for you before upgrading. And there's a ton of value you can get out of CRM 2011 or other versions prior to 2015 without having to upgrade. So we suggest strongly, rather than jump into new software or something that looks like it might have some compelling benefits, and it does, to instead say, if we're not getting value out of 2011, we're doing something wrong, and we're probably going to keep doing that something wrong if we upgrade to 2015. But if we can get that right first and spend our time and money on that, and that probably has a lot to do with really understanding the business and really tailoring things and providing a lot of training to work with the business. It's generally not a technical problem. It's not that something's wrong with CRM inherently. It might need to be reconfigured a bit. You might need more training, but it's usually not a, hey, the software is bad. And an upgrade kind of infers that we're going to fix this problem by putting good software in because the old stuff was bad, and that's just generally not the case. So I'd strongly encourage you to look at our video online for this. If you're on 2011, you're happy with it, you're getting value out of it, now's the right time for you to think about upgrading. If you're on 2011 or some other version and you're struggling with it, now's the time for you to look at shoring up what you have before you jump into an upgrade. So here are the promised additional resources. We have a ton of upcoming webinars. These are just a couple of them featured at the top of the page here. If you go to our events page, events.c5insight.com, it's right there, you will have a number of future events that you can sign up for. We focus on both customer management as well as employee engagement, employee collaboration, and the systems that support those things. So you will see a number of different events you can attend on those topics. The resource links I've mentioned throughout this are mentioned in a large blog article. You can see the link down there, c5in.co/ and then the full name after that, CRM 2015-UR1. We're going to tweet that out there in just a minute, so if you're following us on Twitter, if you'll go look at the C5 Insight Twitter account, you'll be able to get that link there too. If you're not going to the Twitter account, one reminder is capitalization counts on those kinds of links, so make sure you copy it down correctly so you can get to the article, or you can just go to blogs.c5insight.com, and at the moment it's probably the top blog you're going to come to. We're also going to have a self-assessment tool coming out in the next couple of weeks here. So for those of you who are thinking, gosh, should I be happy with where I am in CRM? Exactly where should I look for improvements? We're going to publish a pretty simple self-assessment tool that allows you to look at how your organization is leveraging CRM and decide, are we being successful, are we not? And if we're not as successful as we'd like to be, where should we be looking to make improvements? So watch for that to hit our website in the coming weeks, and you'll see a tweet come out from us about that when it's released as well. So thank you so much for attending today. We also have a lot of other resources available, so if you'd like to have someone come talk to you about this idea of CPR for your CRM, we have an executive briefing specifically on that topic. Let us know. We'd be glad to present that to your leadership team to help you think through what the next steps might be for your CRM application. Or for those of you who are considering a first-time CRM implementation, that's a great executive briefing so that the team can really decide if they've got the commitment level across the board from all business units required for success. You should probably consider some professional help at the right time if you don't have a partner you're happy with. We'd certainly, of course, be happy to partner with you on this. The reality is professional athletes who've been in the game for years have coaches. Business people who are trying to improve their CRM game, their sales processes, their customer service, and their marketing, they need coaches too. You can also request, by the way, to receive a series of 8 emails sent to your sales team on just some simple best practices. So those get sent out every couple of weeks. They're very simple to follow, so if you're trying to encourage your salespeople to step-by-step adopt your CRM solution, this walks through all the fundamentals. It's not training. It doesn't get into any specifics like that, so you don't have to worry about it maybe not being a fit for yours. We can just, it's just based on general CRM principles around contact management and activity planning and opportunity and pipeline tracking and some of those kinds of things. So tons and tons and tons of resources out there, some by request, some via the links that we put out there. I'm going to stop and get questions, but before I do that, I'm also going to ask if you're checking out during the questions or after, please do make sure you fill out the survey we request that you fill out afterwards. That really, really helps us to fine-tune what we're doing within these presentations down the road. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and we'll open it up for questions now.
Thank you so much. As of right now, there are no questions, but you're welcome to submit one. Jeff and I will remain on the line for just a couple more minutes to see if we can help anybody out. Otherwise, feel free to use that email address, luck@c5insight.com, or interact with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter. Thanks so much for your attendance today, and we look forward to speaking with you more in the future.